At 65 years old, adults are twice as likely to be killed or injured by fire. That risk grows with age, doubling by 85. Fire is not the only hazard that threatens our older citizens. Falls lead the cause of death for unintentional injury in the home. 30% of people aged 65 and older are involved in falls each year. This leads to injuries, loss of mobility, and sometimes even death. Reduced mobility hampers movement and may result in failure to escape a fire. Because fire spreads rapidly in the home, sometimes only seconds are left to escape. By giving you the tools and tips to prevent these two issues, we can help you age in place safely. This is Remembering When. It's a thing we teach children in school. Stop, drop, and roll. The reality of it is, we all need a gentle reminder about this life-saving tip, even as adults. To catch fire is panic-inducing. And in that adrenaline-filled moment, will you remember what to do? That's why we practice stop, drop, and roll. Today we're going to refresh our memories. We're going to practice stop, drop, and roll, and go over any safety tips that we have to make sure that you come out of this safe and alive. Our homes are filled with heat sources. Some of these are more dangerous than others. Some can even cause a fire or cause you to catch on fire. From candles to stoves, fireplaces to wood stoves. There are many things in the home we take for granted. These everyday items in our home can cause a fire if we are not careful. 15% of cooking fire deaths occur from the ignition of clothing. A simple thing like cooking can prove to be fatal. But not if we remember what to do in an emergency, our own emergency. If you catch fire for whatever reason, follow these simple tips and guidelines to extinguish the flames. If you catch fire, first, stop. Don't run. Don't panic. That will give additional time. Flames can grow on you, and also you might spread fire through your house. Next, drop to the ground. Drop to the ground as gently as you can. You might not be able to get down that gentle, but having an injury is far better than having severe burns. Once you've made it down to the ground, you want to lie on your side, cover your face so you don't breathe in smoke or get fire across your face. Once you've covered your face and you're laying down, now you'll roll to put the flames out. Once you've started rolling, don't stop. Make sure the flames are out. So just keep rolling. Roll, roll, roll. For those that are mobility challenged, keep a blanket close by in the instance you might have to smother flames. If you use any sort of mobility assistance device, such as a motorized scooter, a wheelchair, or a walker, lock it in place and then get down on the ground and roll. If you are able to help someone who is on fire, take a blanket or towel and smother the flames to extinguish them. Call 911 immediately. Put water on the person to make sure the flames are fully out. Although it seems these are fundamental tips that are simple, in a moment of panic, we need to remember what we've learned and what we've trained to do. When it's our own emergency, we can use these simple tips to help save ourselves. Oh, hi. This, you ask? Things can get a little dicey when I'm cooking, so I always like to have a fire extinguisher on hand. This is an opportune time to talk about fire extinguishers in the home. Every home should have at least one fire extinguisher. There are many types of extinguishers. Do you have the correct one for your home? Do you know how to use it in the event of emergency? The general rule of thumb for an extinguisher is an ABC extinguisher. These are sold at hardware and home stores. They can extinguish different types of fires safely. An ABC fire extinguisher is also called a dry chemical extinguisher. It contains a yellow powder under pressure. Keep your extinguisher near or in the kitchen, but not directly next to the stove. You don't want to be reaching over the fire to get it. In the event of a fire, pull the pin. Aim it. Squeeze it. And sweep side to side. A simple acronym to remember: PASS. Pull, aim, squeeze, sweep. It's the little things that make the difference. Everyday items in the home that we take for granted. But a simple change to those things, say lighting, can make a difference in our safety. Preventing falls can be as simple as flipping a switch. Light your home in an appropriate manner. Place nightlights between your bed and the bathroom. Don't grope through the dark in the middle of the night. Keep a path clear and well lit. Have a flashlight on your nightstand or within reach of your bed. If you lose power in the middle of the night, you may need that flashlight. If you are able, plug lamps into sockets controlled by light switches. This way, when you enter a room, your way is lit. Always turn on the light switch before you use a set of stairs. One tumble down a flight can prove disastrous. Have lighting outside your home. Keep the path from your car to your home well lit. Use a motion detection light around the home. This way, if you need to bring in firewood on those cold winter nights, your way is bright. Stumbling in the dark can lead to falls and injuries. Have your vision checked annually by an eye specialist. Clear vision helps lead to clear paths. Help yourself prevent falls in the home. Light your path. Stay sure-footed. Everyone's life is busy, and we can't control what every driver on the road does, but we can ensure our own safety as we cross traffic. Stop at the crosswalk. Look both ways. Make sure the driver sees you before stepping out. In inclement weather, make sure you are visible to drivers. At night, dark clothes may make it hard for you to be seen. Wear something bright. As you cross, be mindful of cars coming. Cross the street only at crosswalks. Be sure to follow walk signals if available. Don't assume since you have the right of way to walk, cars will recognize this. Be mindful of your surroundings. Pay attention. Take earbuds out and put your cell phone down. When walking down a road with no sidewalk, walk against traffic. Wear reflective or bright clothing. When crossing traffic, you're responsible for your own safety. Stop, look, then cross.
I'm Deputy Chief Emerson with the Brunswick Fire Department, here with Director Jim Graves of Maine Fire Service Institute. We're here today talking about major historic fires in the United States. Today we're going to talk about the fire called the Coconut Grove Fire. Jim, help me out with the Coconut Grove Fire. When did this fire take place? What was taking place in the country?
Okay, so the fire occurred November 28th, 1942. Our country was at war. There were, in the city of Boston, there was a lot of sailors and soldiers getting ready, we're preparing for the invasion of Europe in 1942, believe it or not. But the Battle of El Alamein had just happened earlier that month. So obviously America is at war on two continents at the time. We're in Asia, of course, in the Pacific, fighting the Empire of Japan, and we're fighting the Germans in North Africa at this time. So we're engaged. America obviously is coming out of a depression that had lasted for many years, since 1929. Prohibition had ended a few years before. Americans were looking to get out and enjoy life a little bit because of the raw realities of what was going on. Nightclubs were a place to do that. I think all of us that grew up in New England, and especially became firefighters in New England, have heard about the Coconut Grove fire. And it's an interesting study, to say the least. Very, very tragic.
Jim, this fire had a reputation of being a very fast-moving fire. Can you explain that a little bit better?
Yeah, this fire, due to the interior finishes, picked up headway really quick, very rapidly, and it's what contributed to the number of deaths. I mean, we're looking at 492 fatalities.
Wow.
In one facility. It was the second at the time, and I believe it still is, off the top of my head, other than 9/11, the second largest life loss fire in the United States of America, only being beat by the December 30th, 1903 fire in the Iroquois Theater in Chicago, where there was well over 600 people killed.
Jim, tell me a little bit more about this fire. Where did it start? How did it move through the building? Tell me a little bit about what took place.
Well, yeah, it's really has never officially been determined what the cause is, as I understand. I've read the investigation report. I have a copy of it. The fire opened up. This is a 2-floor nightclub. So you go in on Piedmont Street and you've got the Coconut Grove nightclub, but then you've got the Melody Lounge downstairs. So there was a stairway that went down into the Melody Lounge, and I don't want to take away from any of the individuals that have really good information on it, but from what I understand is the interior of this place was to look like a South Pacific Island coconut grove. The columns were wrapped in like coconut, to look like coconut trees, palm trees with coconut lamps. And downstairs, the rumor is a soldier or a sailor was getting a little close to a lady, and he unscrewed a light so he could have some privacy to kiss her at the time. And somebody recognized, hey, the light's out, so a busboy, a young man, came along and he was told to fix the light. So he lit a match so he could see, and he screwed the light bulb in. So it was like a coconut-looking light, and he screwed the light in, and then shortly thereafter there was a fire spotted above that area. Whether it was electrical or caused by the match, the young man said he extinguished the match appropriately. One will never know. And the fire, because of the interior finish, and Jeff, you know, when you're an inspector and you go out and you see interior finishes that propagate flame growth and fire and smoke spread, we have to write that up, especially in a place of public assembly. So we want to have walls that don't propagate fire, so we want sheetrock or stone or something else that has a low rating insofar as flame spread and smoke development. But this place was really designed to burn, unfortunately. There was blue tapestry to make the sky or the ceiling look blue. This stuff caught fire and spread rapidly. And the way it was set, there was no fire doors, there was no sprinkler system, there was no real fire alarm system, as I understand. The fire took off, and everybody tried to rush up out of there, that space, obviously, and there was a door locked at the top of the stairs. So, and then they started to stack, and the fire took off, and then it shot right up into the main area of the Coconut Grove.
And once the fire shoots up into the main area of Coconut Grove, that probably just makes the panic worse.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of contributing factors to this. One was a revolving door. Okay, so the revolving doors, as you know, in the code, life safety code today, have to have breakaway panels. They have to have doors on either side of them that swing out, et cetera, et cetera. This didn't. So as the people rushed to that revolving door, it got gagged up by the people, the panic. They rushed the door stopped revolving, they couldn't get out, they stacked up, and that's how the tragedy really unfolded, and that's why you had 492 people killed. Looking through the records of the dead, I actually found a couple from Portland, Maine that perished in that fire. So, you know, 90% of them are from the Boston area, or they were soldiers, but there was actually a couple from Portland, Maine that perished in that fire. So then, you know, the fire department gets the alarm. Now think about this. I mean, you and I have got on an engine before and gone to a fire. This is nothing I would ever want to roll up on. This is total chaos. Windows started getting broke. They did pull some people out. People escaped. A lot of the people that escaped were the workers there because they're familiar. Okay? When we take for granted when we go into a building, all right? Myself, my training, I'm looking for exits, right? And I would advise everybody to do that. Make sure you know where your exits are and you know your situational awareness. These people were not, and they were drinking, okay, which adds a different flavor to the whole equation. So a lot of the people that escaped and actually got others out were workers. So they went through the kitchens and they found those exits. But there was a lot of blocked and locked exits in this fire, which contributed. But I also found out when I was reading this report that some people survived by going into the freezer and the cooler in the kitchen. They actually survived. Insulated, think about it.
Wow.
Stayed cold for a while, and the firefighters ended up getting to them down the course of the fire.
Jim, it sounds like a lot of good changes came from this fire, a lot of code changes. Can you tell me a little bit more about some of the things we might look more into, or we may have looked more into after this fire?
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously after this massive tragedy, a lot of things got looked at. A lot of fire codes got looked at deeply. Again, the life safety code is in early development, as I understand it. But they started looking at exits. They started looking at interior finishes. Sprinklers had been around for years. I mean, let's be honest. You know, sprinklers came in the 1800s, and they started to be looked at more and more and more when you got a mass amount of people in a building. And working in the State Fire Marshal's office for a number of years, and working with you in the field, we know the importance of proper exiting, proper notification, crowd management, and sprinkler systems. I mean, we're not going to approve anybody to be into a nightclub tonight or today in today's modern times that doesn't have a sprinkler system, and there's a reason for that. Unfortunately, hundreds of people perished, and we had to learn that lesson. Americans are very reactive, not proactive, because of the costs associated with it.
Jim, thanks again. It's always been a
Absolutely.
pleasure. I appreciate the time.
No problem, anytime.
Welcome back to our segment on fraud awareness. I'm here today with Jane Margison and Commander Mark Waltz. How are you two doing?
Just
Good.
fine, thank you.
Well, Wi-Fi, it's everywhere. We use it. It's in public spaces. But what should we be concerned about with Wi-Fi?
Well, public Wi-Fi, the first word to pop out from that should be the word public. And if you're in a public setting and you're using Wi-Fi, that may be fine, but if you're starting to, let's say, check your bank account or use something where you have to use a password to access it, that's potentially the danger zone. If you're just checking the weather and sports scores, that's great. But the moment you start using public Wi-Fi to enable you to access confidential or personal information, you just need to be aware that you don't know all the people around you, and scammers actually have these devices that make it very easy for them to divert what you're typing into your computer so that they can actually see what you're typing, possibly record what you're typing, and capture your passwords and all the personal information that you may be putting in. So honestly, what we tell people is if you're using public Wi-Fi, please don't use that situation to start using personal, accessing personal business, because you may be headed for trouble.
So what advice would you give to people that maybe don't have computer access at home but are going to a coffee shop, even a library where there's public Wi-Fi, and they're using this to conduct their business or to save a little money at home because they don't have internet?
Free is not for me, because you may save a little money by not paying either for a subscription, because if you pay for a cell phone subscription to your tablet or whatever, then that's going to be a secure connection to your carrier. But if you're using the free Wi-Fi, it's going to cost you more in the long run, because if you get your credit card number stolen or your bank account number stolen, it's going to get really expensive. So basically don't do it. Also think about public may be more places than you think. Certainly if you're in the coffee shop or the restaurant, you see people sitting next to you, you're going to assume, yep, that's public. But if you're in the hotel, that's the same thing. You might be in the privacy of your own room, but if you're using the hotel's internet connection, that isn't necessary or is not secure.
So the best, like you said, free is not for me. The best way to think about it is if it's not your Wi-Fi, it's not secure.
Right.
You can't guarantee that it would be.
Right.
I think there are some settings that you can place on your computer. There are these. It's called a VPN that you can have on your computer that adds another level, sort of a firewall, if you will. But honestly, I would get more information about it, and I know we were talking about how the Maine State Police has an actual division of computer crime, a computer crime unit. And there are sergeants and officers there who will gladly speak with you about your questions, and they do presentations around the state too, just to educate people about these kind of tech questions, public Wi-Fi, all of that, how to stay safe online.
Now, should you protect your Wi-Fi at home as well?
Yes, you should definitely make sure that your Wi-Fi, I would contact your carrier and make sure that you've got, the highest level of security settings in place. You should absolutely have a password that you use in the house that only you and your family know. Because honestly, there are people who can drive by your house and potentially access your Wi-Fi, and if it's not protected and you don't have a password in place, they might actually be able to access some of your information.
And it's not just accessing your information. They might be using your connection to, say, download child pornography or something. So it's going to look to the rest of the world like it's you that's been downloading it. So there's a lot of reasons to put your password on and make sure that you've locked down your Wi-Fi connection.
And I've always been told, don't use a simple password. Don't just assume that people aren't going to want to go through 1234 or 1234 ABC. Use a password that's unique to you that other people couldn't figure out. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. In fact, the best thing to do is create a passphrase, something that sort of spells out something, has a mix of capital letters and symbols, and try to make one that's easy to remember. Because whenever I tell people, make sure you change your passwords, which we recommend every 4 to 6 weeks, somebody in the room always rolls their eyes because it's a pain to remember those numbers and those passphrases. But try to pick things that are easy to remember, but that are complicated enough that the average person wouldn't be able to just easily crack that code.
Interesting. Well, since we're on the topic of tech and computers, can we talk about some other scams we would see with computer use or the internet?
Sure. Well, one of the ones we hear about a lot is something called the tech support scam. And AARP has actually partnered with Microsoft about this very scam. The way it works is that somebody will call, typically from Microsoft or from another larger computer company, and say, allegedly, yes, thank you, yes, exactly. They'll pretend it's another imposter scam where they're pretending to be somebody else, and they'll pretend that they're from this company, and they'll say, you've got a virus on your computer, or your computer's about to shut down, you're going to lose all of your photographs and your videos and all those treasures that you have on your computer. Again, it's that inducing an emotional response. You don't want to lose your information, and the way to stop the computer from crashing or getting this virus, they will tell you, is that for a small fee, and they will fix it for you. You just give them access to the computer for a few minutes, and they'll fix the problem once you've paid the small fee, which is usually about $99 or $150, something like that. So this particular scam actually has three, it's a triple threat, because one, you're likely going to give over your credit card number to the scammer just to pay for their service. Secondly, you're going to give them access to your computer. So at this point, they could be accessing all kinds of files, documents, maybe your bank accounts, etc., and places that you don't want anybody else to go. And thirdly, they may install what is called malware, malicious software that can actually do serious damage to your computer and your files. So if somebody calls you and says they're from any of the big computer companies and says there's something wrong with your computer, please hang up the phone, stop and verify. That's just easy to do, but take the time to do it. Call Microsoft or the company yourself and say, I just got this call saying my computer's in trouble. Did you guys just call me? And I can guarantee you they will say no.
Are there any other scams that you would like to talk about in relationship to this?
Well, yes, there's another scam that we hear about quite a bit that's typically called the sweetheart scam or the romance scam, which is another online scam. And what happens here is that if somebody is looking at dating websites, maybe they're just looking for a new friend or looking for love, it's easy to share more information than you intend to, because scammers are very good at they're logging onto these same websites, and it's very easy to pretend to be someone else. They may load a photograph of somebody that really isn't them, create an entire profile that has nothing to do with who they really are, but they're just trying to lure somebody into having a relationship with them online or get into some kind of conversation online. And they pull at your heartstrings. A lot of them may pretend to be from the armed forces, from somebody down on their luck who's served in the military. The U.S. Army has an entire website devoted to this very scam because it's such a big problem, because people feel passionately about helping veterans. And so there are all kinds of ways that scammers use these online resources to just do their dirty work. One place where we see a lot of trouble too is in the faith-based sites, because it's what we affinity affinity fraud. The idea is that if you're of a certain faith and you're on a website that's about that faith, you're going to likely assume that anyone who's in that community is not going to be a scammer. And scammers will use that against you. And it's really sad. I find these types of scams honestly heartbreaking, because people lose their hearts, they lose their wallets, they feel like they lose their dignity, and there's a lot of embarrassment associated with it, and it's tragic. But we've heard reports of people literally losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, because over time these would-be love interests just, as I said, they kind of lure you in. They say, oh, I'd really love to come and see you, but my wallet was stolen. I can't afford plane fare. Is there any way you could help me out? And that's how it starts, little by little. And it's almost starts to become like gambling. You think, oh, if I just help them one more time, I'll actually get to meet, Mr. Right or Mrs. Right. And it ends tragically, and it's really sad.
The way people share information, for instance, tagging locations. People know you're on a vacation. When you're posting while you're gone and away. Can you speak a little bit about that at all?
Yeah.
Here's the harm in it, is especially if your Facebook page is public, anyone can see that. So a burglar may think, oh, that's the time I'm going to go burglarize their house, is when they're not there, things. Or if we talked earlier about one of the scams that involved someone pretending they're your grandchild. One of the ways they figure out who your grandchild is because they look for the online obituary, and they look for the family relationships and try to figure out who it is they can take advantage of. So you try to, it's nice to do social media, and it's nice to keep in contact with people, and maybe you don't feel so lonely if you do. But again, be careful what you put, because especially things that are wide open to the public, because you could be giving people the information they need to take advantage of you in some way, whether it be financially from a long distance or breaking into your house at a very close distance.
Yeah. Almost everybody owns computers nowadays. So again, viewers at home, really take the time, think about any of this information that's being given to you, people trying to get information from you. Again, check the link that we have on the screen. We'll have the links at the end of the episode as well. And please try and protect yourself. Until next time, stay safe.